Bruce Lee was ridiculed. You're just a movie star by Frazier, his skills left. Bruce Lee was ridiculed. You're just a movie star by Frazier, his skills left the boxing legend speechless. The tension in the Madison Square Garden locker room was palpable. Joe Frazier, the heavyweight champion, adjusted his gloves with a cocky smile as his sparring partners laughed in the background. The news had spread. Bruce Lee, the little kung fu actor, had challenged the boxer to a demonstration of skills. To Frazier, it was a joke. "This guy makes movies, he doesn't actually fight," he had told reporters earlier. "I'm going to show him what real strength is." Bruce entered the ring in his black kung fu pants and bare feet, his defined muscles shining under the lights. There were no gloves, no protectors, just his bare hands and a serene expression. Frazier scoffed, shaking his head. "All right, kid. Let's see what you got." Frazier's first blow was a quick and brutal straight right, the kind that had knocked down Muhammad Ali. Bruce dodged it with minimal movement, as if the punch were too slow to warrant effort. The audience murmured. Frazier tried a left hook. Bruce dodged again, countering with a side kick that hit the boxer's rib with a sharp crack. Frazier staggered, eyes wide. "What the hell was that?" he growled, rubbing his side. Bruce didn't respond. He moved like water, fluid and unpredictable. Each attack from Frazier found only air, while the kung fu master's counterattacks, kicks, punches, elbows, began to leave marks on the champion. A spinning kick connected with Frazier's shoulder, sending him back. A punch from Bruce, so fast he barely saw it, cracked against the boxer's chin, making his head spin. Frazier, furious, attacked with all his might, delivering a barrage of blows. Bruce blocked some, dodged others, and when the boxer exposed himself, a front kick hit him in the chest, sending him against the ropes. The audience was silent. Frazier stood up, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "This isn't real fighting," he shouted. "You just know how to dance." Bruce stood in the center of the ring, arms relaxed at his sides. "Fighting isn't about brute strength, Joe. It's about efficiency. You spend energy attacking the air. I spend energy hitting you." He pointed to the red marks on Frazier's torso. "And you're tired." Frazier roared and charged again, but this time Bruce didn't move. When the punch came, he grabbed the boxer's fist in mid-air, twisted his arm and applied a joint lock that forced him to his knees. Frazier screamed in pain, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Stop. Stop," he gasped. Bruce let go of his arm and stepped back. "I didn't come here to humiliate you, Joe. I came to show you that there's more than one way to fight." He turned to the audience, many of whom were now looking at him with respect. A true warrior does not underestimate his opponent. He learns from him. Frazier stood up, massaging his wrist. His pride was hurt, but something in his eyes had changed. "Man, you're fast as hell," he admitted, almost reluctantly. Bruce smiled. "And you're strong. Imagine if we combined the two?" Frazier hesitated, then extended his hand. Maybe we should train together one day." Bruce shook his hand. "Whenever you want." As he left the ring, Bruce knew that night had changed something. He wasn't just the kung fu actor anymore. He was a fighter who had silenced a champion. And, most importantly, it had taught a lesson: true power was not in winning, but in evolving. End. The lesson of the ring. The days that followed were marked by a strange silence behind the scenes of the tournament. Frazier, once the center of attention, now shunned the spotlight, spending hours alone on the gym's punching bags. Bruce, in turn, was approached by reporters and curious fighters, but he refused interviews. "The fight wasn't about me," he said, always with an enigmatic smile. A week later, a letter arrived in Bruce's locker room. No return address, just your name scrawled in bold letters. Inside, an invitation. "If you still think we can learn from each other, show up at the old warehouse on 8th Street. Tomorrow, at sunset. No cameras, no audience. Just the two of us. Bruce recognized Fraser's crooked handwriting. The warehouse smelled of mold and burning oil. The broken windows let in the orange light of the afternoon, illuminating the makeshift ring in the center. Fraser was already there, wrapping bands around his hands with precise movements. He didn't look up when Bruce entered. "You're early," he said at last. "You too." Fraser finished adjusting the straps and stood up. "I didn't come here to shake your hand again. I came to see if you can take more than 3 punches." Bruce crossed his arms. "What if I say I'm not here to fight?" "Then go away." "Because I am." The first blow came quickly, but not like in the tournament. It was a test, a calculated punch in the shoulder. Bruce dodged it easily, but didn't retaliate. Fraser frowned. "What is it? Scared?" "Afraid of what?" "Of you hitting me?" "It's happened before." Fraser growled and went for it, this time with a series of jabs. Bruce blocked, counterattacked with a low kick that made Fraser retreat, but the big man recovered and advanced again, now with heavier blows, mixing boxing and dirty movements, elbows, shirt pulls, a disguised knee. Bruce let him get tired. He didn't fight back with force, he just defended himself, deflecting, absorbing, studying. Until, in a moment of carelessness, Fraser left his flank open. Bruce didn't land a punch. Instead, he lightly touched his shoulder and stepped back. "You're fighting with anger," he said. "That's not how you win." Fraser spat on the ground. "And what's it like then?" "Like this." Bruce advanced again, but this time he didn't defend himself. He let Fraser land a punch to the stomach, another to the jaw. He didn't fall, but he staggered. Fraser stopped, surprised. "Why do you?" "Because you need to learn to control your strength," Bruce interrupted, wiping the corner of his mouth. "A fighter who only knows how to attack is like a hammer, useful, but breakable. You have to be flexible. Unpredictable." Fraser took a deep breath, his fists still clenched. "What if I don't want to learn this?" "Then you'll keep losing to whoever is smarter than you." The silence stretched. Fraser looked at his hands, then at Bruce. "Show." And so it began. Training in the warehouse became routine. Fraser taught Bruce how to absorb impacts, how to use his body weight in a punch. Bruce showed Fraser how to move fluidly, how to anticipate blows before they were even thrown. In the beginning, there was tension. Fraser cursed when he made mistakes, Bruce retaliated with subtle provocations. But, over time, something changed. One night, after a particularly grueling workout, the two sat on the floor, leaning against the ring ropes. Fraser handed Bruce a bottle of water. "Do you think I can do it?" he asked suddenly. "What?" "To be more than just a brute. To be good." Bruce took a sip and handed the bottle back. "You're already good. I just didn't know how to use it." Fraser laughed, a husky, genuine sound. "Man, you talk like it's easy." "It's not. But it's worth it." The reunion in the following tournament was different. Fraser was no longer the same fighter. He moved with more precision, defended himself intelligently, and when he landed a blow, it was because he had calculated every inch. Bruce, in turn, had gained resistance, learned to withstand impacts that would previously have knocked him down. When they faced each other in the semifinals, there was no provocation. Just respect. The fight lasted 5 rounds. Fraser landed an uppercut that made Bruce see stars, but he recovered and responded with a series of kicks that left Fraser breathless. In the last round, both were exhausted, exchanging slow blows, almost in slow motion. When the gong sounded, the crowd exploded. It didn't matter who had won, because they both knew that this was no longer the same match as before. The judge raised Bruce's hand, but it was Fraser who approached first, pulling him into a quick hug. "Good game, Professor." Bruce smiled. "Good game, student." Years later, when Fraser was already a world champion and Bruce had become a martial arts legend in cinema, the two still met from time to time. No longer to fight, but to train together, like old friends. And sometimes, when an arrogant young fighter challenged Fraser, he would just smile and say, "Before you face me, you should meet my trainer." And then he pointed to the screen, where Bruce Lee performed a perfect kick in slow motion. End. The last lesson. The years passed like a well-placed punch, quick, precise, leaving marks. Fraser held the belt for 3 consecutive defenses until a young heavyweight from Detroit, with fists of steel and an even sharper tongue, challenged him in Las Vegas. His name was Darius the Hammer Cole, and he had no respect for legends. "This guy is just an old man who got lucky," he said in interviews, spitting out the words as if they were poison. "I'm going to break his jaw before the 5th round." Fraser heard the comments as he wrapped the bands around his hands in the locker room. Bruce, now with gray hair but eyes still sharp as blades, watched in silence. "You don't need this," Bruce said finally. "You can let me talk to him." Fraser laughed, a hoarse, almost forgotten sound. "You? After so many years, you still want to fight for me?" "It's not for you. It's for the lesson." On fight night, the gym was packed, the air thick with the smell of sweat and money. Darius entered first, jumping around, blowing kisses to the audience. When Fraser entered the ring, the crowd applauded, but there was something different in the air, a tension, as if everyone knew this wasn't just another title defense. Bruce was in the front row, dressed in a dark suit, his hands folded in his lap. Darius saw him and laughed. "Hey, old man. Your student is going to need a coffin after this." Bruce didn't react. Just smiled. The gong sounded. Darius charged like a bull, his fists swinging in wide, desperate movements. Fraser dodged it with the precision of someone who had seen that film before. In the 2nd round, a straight right hit his chin, and he staggered. The crowd screamed. Bruce, impassive, didn't move. In the 3rd round, Fraser counterattacked. A short and brutal left hook hit Darius's liver. The young fighter doubled over like an empty sack, his eyes wide with pain. Fraser didn't stop. Another punch, this time to the jaw, and Darius fell to his knees, blood running from the corner of his mouth. The referee started counting. Darius stood up at 9, but his eyes were glassy. Fraser moved forward, not to knock him out, but to whisper something in his ear. "Now you know." Darius fell again, and this time he didn't get up. The audience exploded. Fraser raised his arms, but his eyes searched the crowd for Bruce. The old master nodded, once, as if to say, "It is done." At the press conference, Darius, his face swollen and his pride more injured than his body, was asked about what Fraser had said. "He told me to look for Bruce Lee. He said I still had a lot to learn." The reporters laughed, thinking it was a joke. But Darius wasn't kidding. Weeks later, he showed up at Bruce's gym in Los Angeles. The place was simple, almost Spartan, concrete walls, worn punching bags, cracked mirrors. Bruce was alone, wrapping bandages around his hands. "So you're the famous Hammer," said Bruce, without looking at him. "I heard it breaks bones, but it doesn't know how to take a punch." Darius clenched his fists. "I didn't come here to be humiliated." "Then why did you come?" "Because Fraser said you could teach me how to really fight." Bruce finally looked at him. His eyes were calm, but there was fire in them. Fighting isn't just about hitting. It's about knowing when not to hit. It's about knowing when to back down. It's about knowing that, sometimes, the greatest victory is not having to win. Darius snorted. "That's a loser's philosophy." Bruce smiled. "Then let's see if you can handle a real lesson." He took the bandages off his hands and threw them on the floor. "First rule, you won't touch me. Second rule, if I touch you, you fall. Third rule, if you fall, get up and be grateful." Darius laughed in disbelief. "Are you crazy?" I'm 3 times stronger than you. Bruce didn't respond. He just assumed the fighting stance. Darius advanced confidently. Bruce dodged the first punch with minimal movement, as if he were dodging a breeze. The second blow was so close that Darius felt the wind in his face. The third, a side kick, hit his ribs with the precision of a scalpel. He fell to his knees, out of breath. Bruce approached. "Get up." Darius obeyed, trembling. "Why?" "Because the fight isn't over until you understand." They trained for months. Darius learned that brute force was useless against technique. He learned that respect did not come from fear, but from humility. He learned that, sometimes, the true champion was not the one who knocked the opponent down, but the one who helped him get up. Years later, when Darius defended his own world title, he dedicated the victory to 2 men, Frazier, for showing him the way, and Bruce, for teaching him how to walk it. The night Bruce died, too young, suddenly, as if fate had decided his mission was accomplished, Frazier and Darius were at his coffin. There were no words. Just the silence of someone who knew that some lessons never die. And sometimes, when a new arrogant fighter came along, challenging one of the two, they would just smile and say, "Before you face me, you should meet my trainer." And then they pointed to the sky. Bruce's last lesson. The years passed, and Bruce's legend grew not just in the ring, but in the stories that Frazier and Darius told. The gym where it all began, once a place of sweat and screams, became a sanctuary of respect. The walls, previously peeling, now displayed framed photographs, Bruce in his first fight, Frazier with his belt raised, Darius kneeling after the victory that consecrated him. But in the center, in a place of honor, was an image of Bruce smiling, his wrists bandaged, his eyes shining with that mix of wisdom and mischief that only he had. Frazier, now with gray hair and hands scarred from decades of fighting, was still training young prospects. Not with the harshness of before, but with a patience that surprised everyone. He no longer shouted stronger, but smarter. And when a student asked why he had changed, Frazier simply replied, "Because Bruce taught me that unchecked force is like a river without a bed, it destroys everything in its path." Darius, in turn, had become a different champion. He was not just looking for victories, but legacies. He created a foundation for at-risk youth, using boxing as a tool of discipline and hope. In his interviews, he always mentioned Bruce. "He taught me that a punch can break a bone, but a word can break a spirit. Or heal it." And when they asked him if he missed fighting, he smiled and said, "I still fight. Only now it's for something bigger." The night Bruce died was cold, as if even the weather knew something important was saying goodbye. Frazier arrived first, bringing with him a bottle of whiskey that Bruce loved, but never drank before a fight. Darius appeared soon after, his eyes red, holding a worn-out boxing glove. It was his favorite, he explained, placing it on the coffin. He said she was the only one who never betrayed him. The two stayed there, in silence, 4 hours. There was no crying, there were no empty words. Just the presence of someone who understood that some absences are as powerful as presences. As the sun began to rise, Frazier finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "He left us before he saw what we really built." Darius nodded. But he saw enough. He saw that we learned. And it was true. Because, in the years that followed, every time a new fighter emerged, full of himself, believing that brute strength was enough, Frazier and Darius would take him to the gym. They showed photos, told stories. And, in the end, they pointed to the sky. "Before you face me, you should meet my trainer." Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others, more sensitive, felt a shiver down their spine. But everyone, without exception, left that place different than they entered. Because Bruce hadn't just taught him how to fight. He had taught how to live. And that, after all, was the true title that no belt could contain.